Story. The Connecticut Business and Industry Association is joining us to break down Connecticut's economic outlook. Does Governor Lamont's new budget proposal do enough to keep business in Connecticut and to start new ones? And how are nationwide issues like a looming recession, hiring needs, and debt affecting our state? Eric Gjede with the Connecticut Business and Industry Association will join us. Plus, President Biden gave a historic State of the Union address, and one Connecticut veteran was there to see it. Senator Richard Blumenthal's guest is joining us. Alex Pleitsis, a veteran and former Pentagon official, to talk about his experience in Congress's chambers and his work to help Afghans after evacuating hundreds of them from Taliban rule. Good morning, and thanks for joining us on The Real Story. I'm Jenn Bernstein. Connecticut's had its fair share of economics ups and downs, and much like the nation right now, as we know. While the state enjoys a record surplus, does it really mean the end of a fiscal crisis? Businesses packing up and leaving Connecticut, people too could benefit from historic tax cuts. Paying down pension debt is something Governor Lamont's talked about, and getting people back to work. Could it all make a difference? What needs to change this session? Well, to help answer that question, Eric Gjede, Vice President for Public Policy with the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, is here. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
And very good to be back in person, because we did several Zoom interviews during COVID. Okay, so let's talk about the governor's budget. He had a lot in there. The biggest one that we've talked about is the cut in personal income tax. He talked about paying down the pension debt. From CBIA's point of view, what did you like in there? What didn't you like?
Well, I think there was an awful lot to like in the governor's budget. As you said, we really do like the fact that he is helping reduce some of the income tax rates, especially for some of Connecticut's lowest paid individuals. So we like that. Hopefully that helps attract more people into the state of Connecticut. And we really like the fact that he's going to restore the full pass-through entity tax credit. That's something that is going to benefit about 123,000 businesses in the state of Connecticut and pump about $60 million back into the economy. And again, for the Connecticut's smallest businesses. So we like that a lot. I certainly think that there's still a lot of opportunity to even make this an even better budget. More business tax relief would certainly be greatly appreciated, and we hope to continue on those conversations with the administration.
Is there anything specific that you were disappointed that you didn't see when it comes to those, business tax relief?
Well, we had a number of proposals going into this session that we thought would really help stimulate the economy. One is allowing the pass-through entities to take advantage of the R&D tax credit, help develop new products in the state, create new job opportunities. Also a little disappointed that there was no additional relief to help with the unemployment debt that every business in the state is currently helping to pay back right now. That's a big drag on the economy. So, again, it's early in the process, and we certainly hope that he's willing to engage with us on those conversations.
Sure. I know that Christy Pentima had posted on LinkedIn talking about the guardrails that were put in place in 2017 when the legislature was bipartisan, and they had put things in like the volatility cap and putting certain controls in place, and they were praising that the legislature was taking it up again. Yeah. What difference could that make if we continue that?
Well, I mean, there is no question that we emerged from the pandemic in the good economic condition that we did as a state because those fiscal bipartisan reforms were put in place back in 2017. So it is an absolute no-brainer to continue those on. The governor just yesterday, or in his budget address, talked about extending it for 10 years. Ultimately, I think what they're going to do is extend it for 5 years. With an option to renew it for an additional 5 years after that. I think it's going to have overwhelming support, and it's absolutely critical to continue to help pay down some of the state's long-term liabilities.
We know that Governor Lamont talked about incentives for keeping employers or helping employers fill jobs, because that's a main issue that you all have talked about too, the workforce shortage that we're seeing. How bad is that in Connecticut?
Oh, it's incredible. We have about 100,000 open jobs in the state of Connecticut, and even if every single person on unemployment right now were to get a job tomorrow, we'd still have 21,000 open jobs. So we really need to attract more people into the state. Honestly, this is probably the biggest drag on the state's economy right now. You know, affordability is still something that we're going to be struggling with, but right now this is what businesses are really talking about.
Wow, and that's been since the pandemic, right? Because we've always heard about affordability in Connecticut for a long time,
right.
Obviously, but now it's really about shortage of workers.
Yeah, I mean, really, it's even before the pandemic. You know, we were talking about, or we didn't even really recover all the jobs from the 2008-2009 recession, so we were already a little bit behind the ball, but the pandemic certainly exacerbated that.
It is interesting because it crosses through multiple facets here in Connecticut. I mean, you go into the dentist office or you go into a restaurant, obviously. I mean, that's one we know, and everyone is having a workforce shortage.
That's absolutely right. Every industry in every corner of the state is suffering from this, and a lot more needs to be done. And you know, we certainly want to continue to come up with solutions and help the administration get there.
Let's talk about the big Lego announcement. A huge blow to Enfield, a huge blow to Connecticut, obviously. Your reaction with CBIA to them leaving Connecticut?
Well, the loss of any jobs in the state is terrible news, and especially when it is a big flagship company like Lego. So that's awful. But you know, this is exactly what we were just talking about. This is part of the workforce crisis. They're leaving here because there are more people in Boston. There's more ability to get the workforce that they're looking for there. So what we need to do is we need to focus on that in the coming years and months. We've got to do more to get people into Connecticut and filling these jobs so that we don't lose any more companies.
There was a Wallet Hub study, and I want to make sure I have it right here, that ranked Connecticut one of the worst states to start a new business, citing that people were leaving Connecticut as a real issue when it comes to not only starting the business but also keeping employees. So it's something that we're continually hearing. So what can we do as a state to change that? Obviously, that's a complicated question.
Yeah.
But a few things that you think we could start doing right away.
Well, you know, again, I hate to talk about the state in a negative way.
Sure.
Obviously, I think this is a great state to do business, a great state to live for sure. But yeah, we have our challenges. We've got to start addressing the affordability issue, helping to attract new residents into the state, attract new businesses into the state, and then back to the workforce issue. And I think that's directly related to that affordability. So if we can start tackling that, I think that we're going to really turn the corner in terms of our economy.
I know that we've talked a lot about this, and Governor Lamont had talked about this too, just the brain drain at points that we're seeing in our state, because we have great colleges and universities here, and obviously we have some talented students, but trying to get that pipeline to go straight into our workforce is the challenge, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, there's, you know, again, anything we can do to try to keep our students here is obviously greatly appreciated. You know, that one of the things CBIA proposed was creating more opportunities for businesses to be able to get tax relief when helping out their employees with student loan debt. That was not in the governor's budget. It's something that we are continuing to talk about. I know he is trying to do more when it comes to providing relief for student loan debt. So obviously he's listening to us. But yeah, we got to create more opportunities and hopefully that will help keep more of our students here.
So overall, does CBIA feel like we're trending in the right direction with this budget proposal and what you all are hearing? I mean, we obviously are in a better economic place than we were before.
Oh, there's no question about that. The economy is in a much better spot than we were before, and I think that this budget is very positive for the business community in terms of addressing some of the affordability issues. I still think there's more that we could be doing, but overall, I think we are trending in the right direction, especially the last couple of years, and it's all because I've seen a lot more bipartisan cooperation at the Capitol. bill, not just rejecting ideas from one party to the other simply because they didn't originate with you. So, I think that if we can continue down this track, Connecticut's best days are still ahead of us.
So you're saying that's interesting that you feel like the political divisiveness that we've seen in past years, and Connecticut, obviously, we've seen it here. It hasn't been as explosive as it has been on the national, scale, but you feel like that's tempered down a bit and people are working together.
Well, you always have your heated moments during any legislative session, of course, but I think that there is bipartisan cooperation going on right now with passing these fiscal guardrail protections, extending those. That's a great sign. That's something you don't normally see at the beginning of a legislative session. So I think they're at least starting off on the right foot, and hopefully that continues.
Interesting. Okay. Eric Gjede, thank you so much for joining us today and for lending your expertise on what you all are seeing. Come back in the middle of the session to see how it's going. Because obviously, this is the governor's proposal. He still has to get that passed through.
That's right.
It's usually compromising that happens. All right, Eric Gjede with the Connecticut Business and Industry Association, thank you very much for joining us. All right, coming up next on The Real Story, who from Connecticut was in the chambers during that historic State of the Union address? Our next guest was a distinguished guest at President Biden's speech, a champion for Afghan refugees. Alex Pleitsis, former Pentagon official and Army veteran, is joining us to discuss his bipartisan effort to find safety for Afghans living under Taliban rule. His experience on Capitol Hill coming up.